We're here to talk about the monthly report, folks. Welcome in. It is another month, and I know I'm a little bit late on this one. We were just traveling from California to Turkey. We're here, as you can see. We're in the studio, the Turkey studio, but we've got computer problems and GPU problems and stuff. So if you notice things are not performing correctly and it's more laggy than usual, that's just because we're running on the slowest possible RAM you can find out there these days. We'll get around to it at some point. But thanks for coming in. Hope you get some good info from this. We're going to go into deep detail about all the behind the scenes sort of updates going on in Star Citizen that aren't really in your weekly videos or your patch notes or anything like that. This is a lot of the feature work that's coming later in the year or next year or 5 years down the line rather than the stuff coming in the next patch. But it's also that. Anyways, we always start with AI content, which is generally the most advanced work going on with AI, the stuff that's actually going to lead into things to do in the game. To begin, AI content continued to support Star Citizen's monthly release cadence, one that has made a lot of people happy, a lot of people annoyed. It was exciting to see the comms calls start to make their way into the game, as well as finally unveiling the newsflash content around the landing zones. These little updates will help provide players updates about the events happening around the verse. Moby-Glass 2, please win. Alright, as they continue to develop these features, that is the comms calls they're talking about here, the devs requested additional functionality to allow for new features such as scheduling, as well as scope out work to make things like channels. I can help you guys with that. Discord's got those. Okay, on larger scale initiatives, AI content team worked alongside combat AI to devise a new collection of wildline triggers for combatants and how they could or whether they should plug into the proposed line set for generic population NPCs. The team also reviewed and standardized the trigger list used by behaviors across the game to ensure that there's a single list of context words that everyone is operating with. This will prevent confusion when building behaviors or structuring missions. These kinds of things are the real buttoning up the, I don't know what the freaking term is, buttoning up something. Buttoning up the shirt kind of moves as they hopefully leave behind the more ragtag kind of all over the place development style for stuff that's more systemic like this, that the whole company can get behind and understand exactly what's going on. Moving on to AI features. In May, AI features ensured human combat is in an optimal state in several key areas. This includes ammo management and behavior, cover usage, first reactions and perception, attack and defend areas, investigations, grenade use, tactics, and medical behavior. The main focus is to stabilize and reach gold standards for each of these things. That's a pretty decent amount of things to rely on AI to do. Ammo management behavior, that includes reloading and stuff like that. Cover usage. Not sure. It'd be interesting to know if this includes anything about Maelstrom or if this is just for static cover. First reactions and perception, we've heard plenty of stuff about this. Attack and defend areas, we've also heard about that. Investigations, all of this is stuff that we have been seeing on monthly reports for probably the last 2 years in the AI sections as they've been working on them. And you can also find plenty of videos that they've published that go into details on these kinds of things. Going back to Star Citizen or CitizenCon 2023, you'll see a little bit of AI development stuff in the back here. They talk about the kind of classes. Oh my god, it's so slow. A different type of fun, you know? They're talking about the different classes that, different types of classes that AI can take, the way that they work when they're under fire, blind firing, shooter token, ignore fire, obstruction, aggressive, cautious, and then you can see the way that this plays out as well. So a lot of this is like, it'll show how healing works between NPCs. Just one behavior. Love the way this guy cheers when he gets up. He's so hyped. Searching behaviors, avoiding dangerous locations and hazards, grenades, stuff like that. This is all stuff that they have been developing over time. And now in this monthly report, they're simply talking about getting up to a gold standard that I guess works for the game. Probably not our 1.0 kind of standard, but definitely Or not definitely. Sounds like something that could be representative of the AI they want in the medium term. Good to hear. I still feel like there's a lot of variety we could see from FPS AI, though. All right, so in pursuit of the above we talked about here, various issues were fixed across AI, including NPCs looting ammo too close to hostiles, NPC handling light switch disruption, and first reaction triggering simultaneously and putting the AI into an unresponsive state. A bug was also fixed that caused NPCs to incorrectly count ammo and evaluate remaining resources, causing them to loot more than necessary. BS! NPCs never have the ammo on them I need. They'll be using the same gun as me. I shoot them dead. I go over, I get their ammo. Dust particles. They carry nothing in their pockets. Various improvements were made too, including how NPCs select and use cover for shooting. They also made it easier to add new information to the all-weapon component debug and improve the investigate flow to work better over a range of conditions with multiple NPCs at different awareness levels. The devs also customized the friendly fire check so that it can be balanced to give NPCs the desired behavior and prevent them from shooting when players feel they shouldn't. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of funny when NPCs shoot each other. Very NPC behavior. Why is AI so hard to build? They've been at it for years. You know, I don't know. I could come up with something like server meshing or the complex interactions that they have to come up with. Genuinely, I don't know. I've wondered the same thing. We've seen so much talk about the AI, and while they've definitely improved, still just waiting for it to meet the level that these monthly reports make it feel like it would. Maybe it will in Squadron. Continuing on with AI features, the Wildline setup channel was updated to enable the devs to mute and suppress already queued lines after the death of an NPC. So you no longer have dead bodies saying, "You shouldn't have come here." Shut up. Totally should have come here. Defend area and combat movement queries were also updated to ensure NPCs don't get stuck in spawn closets, a favorite of NPCs. For example, if too many NPCs are set to enter a 3x6 meter area, they will get stuck. Sounds like they just don't want to go to prison. New tech and features were implemented too, including logic to prevent low to medium priority wildlines from triggering during track view sequences that NPCs are involved in. So like during more cinematic setups, kind of. Logic was also added for switching the aim target location to the visible element of the body while considering aiming priority as in torso, then head. AI features also finished work to ensure NPCs animatedly react to compromised cover, cleaning up the NPC medic flow to make it more robust and improve the visuals, adding additional debugging to balance first reaction times for audio and visual events, and adding trait debugging to prevent conflicting behavior traits. NPCs reacting to cover. I think we saw that in this most recent CitizenCon. I want to say it was in Brave New Worlds. So here they were showing.
We'll see two
I don't even have to say. He'll tell you what we're seeing.
main elements. The graph on the top left and the two colorful cones. The graph on the left basically represents the current light level the NPC is in and the current multiplier this light level generates to speed up or slow down the NPC perception and understanding. The two cones instead represents the primary and secondary FOV. The red color means that if you stand in that location, it will result in NPC reacting the slowest to you, and the green color instead represents the quickest response. So during the night, NPC will have a hard time to understand and foresee and see things, but if they have flashlights on their helmets, they can turn it on, and this will impact their primary FOV, making still the peripheral vision a bit more uncertain. And as you see here, first of all, the NPC is patrolling with his domesticated friendly copion. This is because he wants to exploit the vision, the night vision capabilities of the animal, and it's kind of our tier 0 pets. So we will now look at
So yeah, that's... Oh. Wait. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm so confused by my audio setup. So that's kind of a little bit of perception stuff going on there. But they also have the cover
system. That is the next dynamic things that I want to show you. So when we introduced planetary navigation mesh the first time, our goal was really to create a systems that would support and process the environment in a very dynamic way. Our planets are just way too big to statically export them and process them, first of all, and then their regions only exist when somebody's there. Boulders, rock, walls, and are all useful elements right now. However, we don't have to limit ourselves to static geometries, but also vehicles can be used for cover. And as you can see, this is dynamically generating while the vehicle moves. So
I love it. You can tell that that vehicle was just on tracks because it's not even going straight like the wheels would be. But yeah, a little bit of some small updates on AI from last CitizenCon. You can tell that this stuff has been consistent. It's hard to forget, or it's easy to forget about those small updates, though. Finally, a fix was added for placed dead bodies to prevent them from causing the AI to react when, from a story perspective, they already exist in the world. So there's they're just dead body props laying around a crash site, and then one of the survivors from the crash site is walking around getting constantly surprised over and over by the dead body that they already knew about. Finally, for AI features, the team added audio proc clips to take down animations so that nearby AI are alerted. They also added debug logging to disturbance events to prevent AI from reacting before the level has started properly. Wow, so they just added a little bit of audio to takedowns, right? Knife sounds, bodies getting thrown, hitting the floor, knives, more knives, another knife real quick just in the neck. That stuff makes noises so you can't just assassinate somebody and get away with it. Okay, moving on to the AI game intelligence development team, a little bit of R&D on the AI side. In May, the game intelligence development team began work on the UI prototype for Mission System V2. Specifically the outline header design, including the mission object properties design, the outline infrastructure, and a generic outline panel. This also involved creating UI visuals for the outline with all its components. Alongside this, the team also fixed small bugs and worked on features requested by the game designers to improve StarScript. We don't know too much about what this is going to look like. There are several different apps that they need to remake from the mobiGlass, and they're first waiting for the 3D building blocks and building blocks situation to come in. But they were also waiting for just, I think, the game to catch up and have the gameplay and the details that necessitated redoing the apps finally. So here I've got for you, it's not really loading, man, my computer is just messed up, guys. There we go. I just had to put it on this screen and then it would load. All right, so somewhere in here, I do have a quick clip of the Squadron 42 mobiGlass, which does give some insight into what we might see. So the mobiGlass is the messages app that we saw at one point. It's easy to forget that the mobiGlass, while the main thing got redesigned, they didn't actually do all the other apps. So they still got to go through and add in all this kind of stuff. But you can see here, they've got messages, a full message readout. They got ship chat here on the side. Maybe you can customize that more in Star Citizen. But then here is more of a mission briefing kind of page. You got these sections, progress briefing, and after action reports. So this is your objectives. This is the overall look. After action reports, probably just where everything goes after you finished it, and you can see what you did. Ultimately, this definitely looks more like a single player focused kind of contract manager, so I don't think this is what it'll exactly look like. But we are getting some design elements and considerations from this. AI tech. This is the more experimental stuff of AI, but also it's pretty interesting stuff, usually. Last month, AI tech continued to improve how navigation links connect to external zones. So this is when an NPC is going to walk out of an outpost door, they're going into an external zone. The team are currently updating links that are utilizing motion warp, such as mantling or jumping down, to rely on specific metrics, which will enable them to utilize by different categories of creatures. First time I ever saw them talk about this was CitizenCon 2016 or 2017, I believe. And some of it is inverse kinematics, I believe, to detect this stuff. Some of it is a little bit of ray casting. But essentially, this just lets them take an animation for like vaulting or mantling over something and stretch it out so it fits the actual distance of the thing you're going over. It's cool tech. Not like novel, but cool. Updates were also made to the chase movement request to allow multiple destinations around bigger targets like ground vehicles or apex creatures. Interesting, like as an objective. Oh, chase for the AI. The first stage of ongoing improvements to 3D navigation was completed. This involved voxelizing custom areas and allowing them to define granularity. Currently, the voxelization data is being used to improve collision avoidance during AI ship flight. This will definitely help with AI EVAing. The core work for serializing subsumption variables was completed, which is used for network synchronization and the save and load mechanism. Serialized variables is that's an old one. I want to say that's something that they updated in 3.0. I believe what it does is it allows them to make references to objects and give them characteristics that apply to whatever that object is. But I think we can also have Chris Roberts and Aaron Roberts explain it to us themselves.
So it'd be nice to see people hauling something other than Big Benny's vending machines and unsuspecting.
What are serialized variables, guys?
As great as all those videos were, the team has worked hard to give you a proper mechanic for the 3.0 release.
Yeah, I mean, cargo is just one of the many important features we're currently working on. A lot of them, like cargo and, say, derelict ships, will be easy to see, while others, like serialized variables, aren't as visible but are just as critical to the game.
He said it.
Yeah, no, they're absolutely definitely as critical to the game.
Oh, let me turn up the volume for a bit for you guys.
Because when you're attempting to build a game as large and complex as Star Citizen, it's essential to come up with a new way to streamline the data being transferred between the server and the clients.
And so here to explain exactly how serialized variables will improve our networking capabilities, and of course, most importantly, your Star Citizen experience, let's hear from lead network programmer Clive Johnson.
So this is definitely a network kind of thing. Clive Johnson is also, from what I've understood, one of the crucial genius brains behind getting server meshing working. I think he leads the server meshing team at this point. But the fact that they're doing more to make serialized variables more common in the game can hopefully mean that it's just more network optimization going into it.
My name's Clive Johnson. I work for Foundry 42 UK, where I'm the lead network programmer working on Star Citizen. Today we're going to talk a little bit about serialized variables. So what are serialized variables? Well, they're not really something that you can see in the game, and ideally, if everything's working the way it should, then they're not something that you really ever need to think about. But they are the answer to a question, which I think is quite important, and that's how do you network a game like Star Citizen? One of the first times I asked myself that question was shortly after I joined the company. I think my first reaction was one of sheer terror. You know, tears, panic, and once it kind of calmed down and the tears had stopped, you do what any engineer is going to do.
That's just a perfect line for Star Citizen overall.
Was one of sheer terror. You know, you do what any engineer is going to do when faced with an impossible problem. You try and break it down into smaller, impossible problems. When trying to answer the question, how we network Star Citizen, one of the first things we've got to think about is exactly who's going to do the work, who's going to network everything we have in the game. Now, Star Citizen itself is made up of thousands of different elements, and some of these are visible, like planets and ships and players and coffee cups, and others you don't see, like missions or the logic assigning out landing pads. Each of these elements is really a different type of entity. and each type might be used thousands of times throughout the game. But all the types behave in specific ways or have certain uses, and that has to be implemented in the code. And most of them need to work in both single player, for Squadron 42, and multiplayer, for Star Citizen. In other words, most of them have to be networked. So who's going to do the work? Well, currently we've got about 60 engineers coding different parts of the game, but we have only 6 network programmers. Half of these work in Austin on back-end services, and that includes, our core online services such as matchmaking and friends and player authentication. The other half is my team here in the UK, and we focus mainly on the networking between the client and the server. So it's kind of up to us to make sure that all the entity types are correctly networked and everything's functioning the way we'd like it to in the multiplayer game. But with 60 programmers or thereabouts writing new code and making new entity types, if we've only got 3 actually making it work in multiplayer, my team needs to work about 20 times faster than anybody else. We're good, but we're not that good. So clearly leaving all the networking to the network programmers is not going to work. So what we need to do is have every engineer make sure that their own code works in multiplayer. But the problem with that is that network programming is really very hard, and it can take years to learn all the different ins and outs. So we need a way to simplify it so that non-specialists can learn everything they need to do in just like a couple of hours. What we need is an API, which stands for an application programmer interface, and that's really a cushion between a programmer doing the work and the problem that they want to solve. The API
that was like one of the most random and weird pieces of B-roll I've ever seen inserted into a clip. I don't think there's been any B-roll in this entire 3-minute clip, and then they just randomly decided to put in a little explainer of API.
In just like a couple of hours. What we need is an API, which stands for an application
programmer
interface. And that's really a cushion between a programmer doing the work and the problem that they want to solve. The API kind of simplifies things by allowing the programmer to say exactly what it is that they want to do, but without saying how it should be done. So you can kind of think of it like driving a car. So obviously you've got your steering wheel and the pedals and other controls, gear stick, whatever. That's not how the car drives. They're just the controls that tell the car what to do. So under the hood, the driver's commands are turned into different settings for like fuel air mixture or engine timing or hydraulic pressures for brakes and power steering. And that's kind of the interface part of an application programmer interface. By building the right set of controls, you can change how the API actually works without having to change the code. So,
okay, I'm going to go ahead and cut off there because I feel like we're going on and on. But I hope that explained to you serialized variables. If not, check out what the smart people in chat are saying, because I'm no closer to being able to explain it after watching that. All right, continuing on. The subsumption conversion feature, a clustering algorithm, was added to split participants into, where is my music, please? Thank you. Into more meaningful groups. This group data will be used to create avoidance obstacles, meaning NPCs will be able to avoid others already in a conversion group. Good for them. On the tools side, multiple usability improvements were made to StarScript, such as allowing bulk node deletion and the discarding of invalid subplatforms when loading a platform or marking a document as modified when reordering variables. This was variables again. 8 variables, X and Y. Animation. The facial animation team recorded and processed content for upcoming releases for both new and existing mission givers, including Wicklow. They also continued to provide new voice packs that will populate generic NPCs throughout the verse and began supporting the recently added Newsflash content. Animations were developed for an upcoming creature, too. Any guesses on what creature that might be? They haven't really done anything to be specific about what it could be. I am thinking it might be the... There was a cow we saw recently. I don't know what episode it was in, though. New looking cow kind of thing. Buffalo, alien buffalo sort of guy. Hopefully it's a space whale. Can we just get space whales so we don't have to ask for them anymore? Art. On the character side of things, the art section may saw the character art team progress with new creatures, a heavy armor, and gameplay rewards. They also kicked off a light armor. The concept art team prepared handoff cheats and explored future in-game armor rewards. All right, I'm going to skip art on the ship side. We're going to come back to this at the end because we have a whole update to do with ships now. Obviously, with the spreadsheet, we need to make sure we're keeping good track, and this is going to be enough to be its own video. So if you're watching this and you're looking for the ship section, it'll probably be uploaded within a couple days or first. I don't know, but keep an eye out for that. Moving on, as we do, us beautiful people, fantastic, lovely individuals, we have come to the core gameplay update. And you guys deserve a nice, juicy session reading the core gameplay update. Yeah, man, I'm hyped for this. I will be making another video for this section on the main channel to summarize the stuff we talk about here and add some context. But for now, this is your super detailed dive into core gameplay in May. Core Gameplay are currently working through a long list of weapon improvements to further modernize the FPS experience for both Squadron 42 and Star Citizen, including tweaking how disruptive weapon raising is the flow of combat. Engineering and design collaborated to iterate on these improvements and provide more polished combat gameplay. Work on hacking continued. Hacking mentioned. Guys, hacking. Are you kidding me? Why even say anything about it? Okay. Is this going to be the only update we get for the next 2 years? Or will they continue? If we see another hacking update in the next monthly report, things are unfortunately still not getting real. I'm not gonna sound the alarm on that, but it is a good sign if it's showing up in the monthly report right now specifically, because
wow,
I don't know. I can't say anything like that. I don't know. This doesn't mean it's coming anytime soon, but they are working on it. Anyways, work on hacking continued, which involved highlighting suggested abilities for certain gameplay situations. Abilities are also now disabled when they're not applicable in a specific situation to better explain hacking gameplay. Abilities are a thing with hacking now. The hacking terminal now also supports color-coded terminal output for better clarity. I think I might do a video separately about hacking where we just kind of look at the different things that they've said over the years, because there are a few references we can make. There's a concept image of a hacking tool. I probably can't find it very quickly right now, but thank you very much. Actually, here is the original hacking interface that they had come up with. So this was the first work in progress we saw of hacking in this game. And this model was reminiscent of Deus Ex, where it's kind of like a 3D Pac-Man almost. You're basically shooting your file through this sort of physicalized construct, and you have to avoid these counter defenses, these antiviruses. The whole idea of hacking in Star Citizen has always been you are spoofing the actual credentials of somebody else. So when they moved on from this, they moved over to a format where you would be essentially injecting blocks of code that could do different things. Now, I do believe that those blocks of code are what they are calling here abilities. These are probably like what you can think of from, say, Cyberpunk 2077, when you'd hack into something and it would show you the different things you could do. Those abilities are going to be the things you can do, and I believe they will come in the form of text blocks that you're basically just putting into the kernel or the base code. Now, there's also a picture here of a tool, a hacking tool. And this is kind of the direction that they moved in over time. The idea behind this being everything in the game will have some kind of a terminal that maintenance people are supposed to be interacting with, and this hacking tool will allow you to pretend to be one of them as long as you get the proper credentials. And this, of course, would end up being just another piece of your inventory, something that specific people would care more about carrying along with them, and other people would need to defend on to help them out in tough situations. But this is it. Really just showed that it had a little terminal on it. You probably tap it up to something, little NFC technology, and you bought your groceries. Continuing on, though, because we got a lot more core gameplay to get to. The team also wrapped up work on the new Argo Atlas ICTI and Geo ICTI, both of which support weapons instead of their utility attachments. Additional bug fixes and polish are underway, but the team is excited to further extend the Atlas platform and provide players with more options on the battlefield. How many of these do you guys think they're going to make? I also am surprised. I thought the Atlas Geo was called a Geo because it was a mining Atlas. It seems like instead it's just because it's the backpack Atlas, the jump jet Atlas. That's interesting that they went with it that way. One for every game loop. But what does that mean? Is there going to be an investigation Atlas? What is an exploration Atlas? Honestly, actually, that has a nicer scanner on it, huh? You think there'll be 3 more? You see a missile salvage underwater, anti-air. Could be a thing. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options. You think there can be too many Atlases? You guys think they should try and find better diversity for these other applications, or should they specifically try to get the whole lineup with just one type of exosuit? Engineering. The best part. This is what I like to know about. For engineering, the team reviewed feedback and outstanding work before dividing the feature into smaller milestones. The first milestone primarily covers core gameplay mechanics, such as the engineering screen and its ability to manipulate power distribution and item states. Okay, that's something to know. A recent internal review provided feedback and polish that will be addressed before the feature reaches players. Okay. The diagnostic screen also received new functionality and utility. All right, let's break this down sentence by sentence. First 2 sentences will take us one. They're breaking this into smaller milestones. Primarily, the first covering is the core gameplay mechanics such as engineering screen and its ability to manipulate power distribution and item states. Let us go back to engineering and lay out exactly what this would include in terms of milestones. This isn't going to be completely accurate. Things always change in between the different things that they talk about.
At CitizenCon 29.
But this will give you an idea of the different segments of engineering that they feel they need to explain. Not this one. All right, here are all the things that they were kind of talking about for
using those
engineering
ships
back then.
possible. So all that said, this is a really important system for Star Citizen, but let's dig into the details and see what exactly this is. Resource management can be broken down into several key elements. Power, energy resources, life support, item maintenance, relay handling, access control, and gravity.
So with this first launch, I think what they're focusing on is power, energy resources, item maintenance, and relay handling. We already know this. This is power allocation through the management screen, paying attention to components and how much damage they're taking, and changing out fuses as necessary. Every single one of these things people have problems with in some regard. I'm kind of past the point of explaining why these things are helpful to the game. I think it's better for us to just get them in EPTU, try them out ourselves, and see how they interact. But the next sentence here, a recent internal review provided feedback and polish that will be addressed before the feature reaches players, kind of makes me think that we won't see this in EPTU by the end of June. I mean, maybe they get that feedback in, but that's a pretty quick turnaround. So I'm hoping that we see this in EPTU no later than July. I don't have any other reason to think it will, besides the fact that they talked about it at the recent Con 42, and seemed pretty confident it was coming into the testing at some point soon. This is really big for the game, though, and it's, as far as core gameplay goes, there's not really much that's more core than engineering, because it's not just engineering for ships, it's also engineering for power, for space stations, for outposts, for the bases that we're building, all that stuff. As part of the ongoing quality of life initiative in Star Citizen, core gameplay are working on improvements to the harvestable and loot system. This is to address various performance issues and, more importantly, give the designers more control over how harvestables and loot are spawned. For Alpha 4.1.1, the devs enabled the ability for players to quantum travel to their own vehicles, which was received positively by the community. People liked this. Item recovery is currently progressing with tasks for Tier 1 progressing. Progressing doesn't tell us much. I do like that item recovery is progressing, but that could literally be in the concept phase, you know? Let's see if I can find the thread where they talked about this. And we can look back at what item recovery Tier 1 was, just as a reminder. So Tier 1 will introduce the ability to register your gear in ships at kiosks or ASOP terminals. Here are the important notes. You'll get personal loadouts. Players will be able to register their equipped items, which can be reclaimed for a fee at specific kiosks or freight elevators. Interesting little thing happened yesterday, at some point. In the patch notes, come on, can we find it? Oh, you know how Reddit is. Doesn't make it hard to track these kinds of things. Here we go. Equipment swapping hierarchy. I don't know where this is from. This is just a screenshot from somewhere. But basically this is saying equipment swapping now has some hierarchy when swapping out gear using the new UI. This iteration will transfer items equipped to the outside of the armor to the newly swapped out one, but not items stored inside. So basically, if you're trading armor with an NPC and you want to equip the new armor, you'll throw the armor onto your body and the stuff that was on your armor already will automatically go onto the new armor. This will also only work using the latest looting UI and not the old interface, so using kiosks currently behave like before. This also means that obviously not all this stuff will get stored. You still have to transfer the actual inventory stuff over. When the player is attempting to swap equipment, looting an enemy armor, then every item attached to the old armor or undersuit, such as weapons, grenades, med pens, and backpacks, should attempt to transfer to the relevant slots on the new armor or undersuit. If there is not enough space on the new armor for the items, then they should be placed within the backpack inventory. If there's not enough space in the backpack, they'll be dropped on the floor. Two things interesting here. First is just that this is going to make looting more interesting, and possibly more streamlined for people. I can't imagine the glitches this will introduce, how much it'll drive people up the wall. But it's an interesting addition. The other thing this is doing, it feels like this is kind of starting to get over to loadouts for equipment and the game being able to recognize not just the stuff that's equipped to your body, but what it is also equipped besides, you know, correlating the things that you've equipped. Almost makes it feel like they're moving towards not just suit lockers, but specifically this first thing here that they're mentioning, personal loadout, which is a T1 feature, which they're also showing as progressing in the monthly report. So there might be a little bit of correlation here to things moving forward, both in the game and here on the monthly report, which is good news for feature. All right, continuing on, ships and interiors, along with their loadouts, decorations, and locker contents will be able to be registered in game. They can then be claimed in the state they were previously registered at ASOP terminals for a price. Looted and bricked items, once an item is looted, it remains usable until the original owner reclaims it or marks it as stolen. So if you do kill someone, you get to keep their stuff. Their stuff won't stay on their body anymore. Once tier 1 is in, you can freely loot players again. But they will be able to go to probably like a kiosk or something and mark it as stolen. At that point, a dead man switch is activated, meaning it will cease to function after a period of time. That is kind of dumb. So this is just T1. This is going to be the new rage-inducing thing in Tier 1. Mark my words, this will be it, because people are going to be pissed when they're randomly using a gun they stole from someone and it stops working in the middle of a battle. That's kind of crazy. If they have a dead man switch, hopefully it has like some kind of a countdown. It will change again in Tier 2, but for now, that's like a sort of temporary fix that they're going to have. Basically to make sure that the duping still doesn't run wild. Moving on, while a looted or stolen item bricked is no longer usable, you can still sell the item for credits, so it's still loot that can be sold. Hopefully it's something that can be dismantled too, via crafting. Pledge items are auto-registered and will never lose their registration status. so they can always be claimed back even if they were not manually registered. With Tier 1, you will no longer respawn with your preserved gear already equipped. You will need to visit a location such as your freight elevator to reclaim your registered items. We are developing a quality of life feature to allow you to re-equip your previous full loadout with one auto-equip button at this location. See, that's exactly what I was talking about. They're working on the ability to equip all of your stuff with one click. And for that reason, I think we should wait and let them do that before we decide whether or not it's working. Additionally, their current plan is also to remove the ability to backspace out of dangerous scenarios as a way to retain gear. Wonder what that's going to mean. So that's what they're working on right now. Still, they're just saying it's progressing. I'm betting this is at least 4 months away, 4 or 5 months away. I hope it's closer, but I don't think that Tier 1 is anywhere near coming into the game. As an additional stepping stone, as part of the space combat focused content in Alpha 4.1.1, core gameplay supported design and tuning recoil for vehicle weapons. In collaboration with SFX, VFX, and vehicle content, they made a concerted push to polish the combat experience in cockpits and turrets, and are hoping to expand this to more weapons soon. Turrets need a huge buff. They've gotten better over the years, but turrets need to be kind of overpowered, I think. As an additional stepping stone toward the new vehicle radar and scanning system, radar mentioned, let's go. Changes were made to the information available to players before a ship is scanned. The team are currently reviewing the feedback that came from this change and are looking to implement improvements that smooth out that flow. Yeah, that's when they took away the ability to see player names easily. So I think I saw in the PTU patch notes that they've decreased the amount of scanning you have to do on somebody to see their name. It used to be, so there's like, every ship has like a scanning profile. Very first percentage, you're getting the information of like what type of ship it is. Very last percentage, you're getting the names of the people on board kind of thing. So throughout that period of scanning, you get different bits of information. And at the 80% mark, they were going to give you the player's name. I believe they have reduced that to like the 10 or 20% mark now because, well, it's annoying to not be able to quickly acquire a name, or at least the name of a ship. Something like that. So they're building this out. Like, exploration as a game loop is being built out like a beach. Just one grain of sand at a time. And I do think that we'll start to see some pebbles and stones here soon when they get radar and scanning into the EPTU, when they get Starkitect working, when they allow more localized missions at these locations. But for now, we're still just seeing whispers and murmurs of it behind the scenes. It's churning. It's definitely, it's cooking. And I'm excited to see it, but it still just feels as far away as ever. Hey, this is another fun sounding thing. Quantum interdiction is also being reworked to be more compatible with server meshing, leveraging tech developed for Alpha 4.1 to communicate across different volumes on different servers. This rework is primarily about reliability, not the mechanic itself. The core gameplay team said, "We recognize that there's an imbalance between lawful and unlawful gameplay and want to ensure players on both ends have the tools needed to contend with the other." While this is a great statement to make because many people genuinely believe that the Star Citizen developers just don't know that there's an imbalance, I don't think this is going to convince anybody that believes that they don't know that they suddenly are actually going to get it fixed. I think it's nice that they're acknowledging it, but the people need a lot of tangible action to feel like lawful gameplay is getting the same, or unlawful gameplay is getting consequences, rather. Quantum interdiction coming back, though, is kind of a point towards that, and that's what they're getting at here. Not only is this something that players can do to take out bounties and get players that they think need to be taken to the court of justice and promptly curb stomped into the ground. Obviously, pirates will also use it, but NPCs will use this. Security will use this. Many of you who've played the game for a while remember when security used this way too much for very annoying reasons. They would scan you while you were in your own hangar. They would interdict you in the middle of space. It was ridiculous, but it sounds like they're bringing it back, and I don't think it will be as bad this time, since they actually have to develop it for the real back end. It's also good to note that like these sorts of things are being specifically reworked because of server meshing, they're saying. And for years they were talking about how, I don't know if they were talking about it or we were making the excuse ourselves, but it was like, they're not updating this thing because they don't gonna want to update it. Server meshing is going to come in and then they need to update it again. So they're just kind of leaving it broken. This is a pretty good example of it. Quantum interdiction's been broken for a while, and it needing to be updated for server meshing. If it does come in and it works better, I think that's a good point towards the, I guess, good proof, good validation of the fact that that was happening. All right, continuing, the recent work on control surfaces reached a major milestone, with most of the atmospheric flight model behaviors now in first pass implementation. As part of this, ships will now more accurately reflect the expected flight behavior based on lift, drag, angle of attack, and other factors. Let's go. Thrusters currently activate smoothly to compensate for different atmospheric densities. What? While hovering feels more natural. Hey, I don't know what that means, but I'm happy to hear it. So exhausted of covering control surfaces. I'm so excited for the feature, but we have been waiting for this since, what's his name? Rich Towler. Rich Towler talked about this on Invictus Week Star Citizen Live in 2021. Him and John Crew talked about how they were scrapping hover mode because they wanted to make a system that depended on aerodynamics and heat. And finally, they're making a first pass on it. I really don't think this means it's close to coming into live, because this is a super in-depth feature they're probably going to do a lot of work on before we see it. But exactly, Tyrus. This is such a great thing to hear is going on. Reaching a major milestone. This is going to make VTOL thrusters matter a little bit more. It's going to make landing and taking off look better. Hovering look a little bit better, less ships floating face down. Hell, this is going to mean less ships are going to be able to just float there looking at you on the ground and shooting you. I hope they go hard on this. I do. I know that people are really worried this is going to make flight too difficult. My response to that is we're playing a space sim, go fly in space. Or get a ship with VTOL thrusters. I think this could be a very cool part of the game, but we'll see what they decide to do. The core gameplay team fixed numerous issues related to cargo crates intersecting with each other alongside the ability to retrieve multiple vehicles from a hangar. Players now also receive a warning when their ship accumulates distortion damage. This is a very, very low-key sort of thing, but also significant. Engineering coming into the game means that E-War can start to have more effect on ship systems. We were playing against the fleet battle last weekend, I think it was, and one of our folks came in with the Vanguard Sentinel and shut down the Idris with distortion guns. It's only a matter of time before people start to realize how much of a strategy that is, and how much Idris start falling out of the sky, and how much, like, there's so much strategy, guys. I can't. Oh, I'm so excited. Sorry, I know I'm supposed to be negative. The difference between shooting thrusters or shooting wings or shooting just the hull or shooting like a component with ballistics or lasers or distortions or missiles. So many choices of how to approach ship situations. And at some point, there are going to be medium to large NPC controlled ships of both lawful and unlawful origin floating around out there in space, ripe for the pickings, for us to go and take on if we're a pirate or a mercenary. And I'm just thinking of, like, I mean, I talk about Jump Ship on the podcast this week. We're really excited for that. But that's almost like Jump Ship, just in a Star Citizen environment. Getting to go out with some friends, take on a couple space adventures, pay attention to your ship and maintenance. I'm pumped, man. I'm pumped. So it's cool to see them talking about a warning for distortion damage. That's not a big deal. But when it's added to the addition of engineering and also what we're seeing with capital ships, I think there's some really important developments going on. Also, retrieving multiple vehicles is great. That's good too. For upcoming gameplay, medical beds now heal radiation damage. A pass was also done to ensure players receive proper visual feedback on radiation in the environment. Yay, radiation. The transit rework, internally referred to as the transport system, continued toward the first playable version for internal validation. 6 months on from 4.0, still waiting for that transit rework. I am annoyed with it, but I wait in anticipation to see if what they introduce can truly make the game good in terms of getting around and how they want the system to function. Can anybody confirm in chat, how are you guys feeling about the way that elevators and trains are functioning now as compared to, say, 5 months ago when 4.0 dropped? Do you feel like they've made tangible progress towards being more stable, or are you dealing with the same exact issues? Yeah, this would be trams, elevators, elevators and stuff like that. Trams good, more stability for sure, less falling through the floors, more unstable for you. Whoa. That's weird. You feel like they jitter much less? Zenith, you're seeing it better. Benjam, you're seeing them better. Anunzi, more stable. You haven't been thinking about them, honestly. Yeah, to be quite honest, I didn't even really notice, but over the last month or so, I kind of have not been thinking about elevators as much being problems. The team moved the transport from push to system to serialized variables. There's that again. So I have no idea how that applies to this situation, but you can go back to the beginning of this very video and Luke Presley will explain it to you. To validate the new system, design trialed the transport system in the new Babbage Habs. A lot of Habs there, a lot of doors, a lot of elevators. They're currently addressing feedback and issues resulting from the test. For the Apex Valacar, core gameplay supported the character and AI teams on multiple fronts. For example, the irradiated Apex Valacar's projectiles will now spawn hazard volumes that damage the player over time. The Apex creature also spawns a molehill wherever it exits or enters the ground. I haven't even seen the thing in the game yet. I'm so glad that they finally are getting these sorts of things into the game, and we don't have to look back at 2016 in shame, or not as much shame. Still took them 9 years. But it's going to take some work. I think we'll see a lot of updates to this for its mobility system, because right now it's pretty static. Continuing on core gameplay, FPS radar and scanning also progressed. Radar mentioned. The devs can now specify if contracts should remain visible for extended periods after they have been first scanned, which is useful to the designers in curated situations. Additionally, they can now reduce the signature of a contact if it's considered dead. For example, dead NPCs are no longer detectable from the same distance as alive ones. I would prefer that I am less detectable when dead than alive. That's in real life. I don't want people to know when I'm dead. I mean, I do. Not actively. You know, you can hear it once. Okay? But I don't want you to be able to see through the wall that I'm like dead over there. Give me privacy. This is just more polish. Will contacts remain visible for extended amounts of time? Do dead bodies show up further away than live bodies? Like, this is the kind of stuff that feels like buttoning up whatever it was again. Still don't remember what the heck the phrase is, but these feel very polished. Every single month, the core gameplay stuff feels very polished. And I just really, really would love for them to be like, it's going to have a go, no go meeting this month for EPTU. Please. Y'all know me. I'm a feature slut, dude. That's what I've been all about in this game since we began. I love the feature development. I love seeing where the game's going and how the features are impacting each other. So this whole content playability but not feature stuff, it's like being a bottle without a top. Can't hold in the excitement, just keep throwing it up, you know? Okay, not excited anymore. As part of the upcoming patch release, a lot of feedback was received around the reliability and quality of the new comms notifications. As a result, the team is working through various improvements to ensure mission givers appear at their best. Don't awkwardly look at players. You got freaking Vaughn showing up with his collar copped, looking real mouth breathy, just staring at you. Sorry, CIG. That puts us off a little bit, okay? Finally, for core gameplay, the team are currently supporting an upcoming global event, including new ways to track and display player progress. Okay, they were talking about a global event recently. So on top of the storylines that we're doing in the game right now, they're also going to do a global event, which is an event, not a sandbox activity. It will be something that is timed. We'll see what they come up with for that. All right, for gameplay, the good times, the good stuff. Thanks for sticking around for that one. Let's talk about lighting. You'll be surprised to see that it is smaller than the core gameplay session. Lighting supported all recent and upcoming patch releases, including adding environmental and dynamic lighting to interactable event locations in Pyro. Okay, that's it for lighting. A good update. Locations, also very, very long. Locations worked on supporting the ongoing monthly content releases. Last month, there was a particular focus on Invictus launch week, with the devs looking forward to releases in July and August alongside updates to Wicklow. So there's a little bit of insight into how the teams are working. The locations are definitely getting work done fairly early. Actually, we don't know. Everybody could be working on their August and July releases at this point. Actually, yeah, they're definitely working on July and August releases because the June release is in testing. Narrative. May brought with it a flurry of activity for the narrative team. The top of the month saw them tackling bugs found in Alpha 4.1.1 PTU in preparation for the patch's full release. Simultaneously, members of the team finalized new content that will be heavily narrative focused and even feature audio recordings for players to discover. Love that. Beyond that, dozens of new mission contracts were created for upcoming gameplay to not only provide players with critical information, but a sense of character as well. The writers also worked on scripts for new mission providers who will be making an appearance later this year. I do hope we see some more diversified missions in 4.3. They've been doing a good job of sticking to both sandbox activities and somewhat contract additions this year. Hopefully the contracts keep coming and they flesh out more of the diversity in the game. Finally, the team solidified the story plans for next year, taking the initial high-level outline and pulling in more details to help other teams continue with their planning. They do this in the summer. Narrative usually gets like a year ahead on this kind of stuff, probably mostly concepting and storyboarding, not full-on writing the scripts and everything, but getting an idea of the direction things are going to go in next year. I wonder how much of that incorporates with the features that are coming in this year that will be used for next year's content. Online technology. In May, the network team continued work on dynamic server meshing. Oh my god. Okay, they're talking about it. They are at least mentioning dynamic server meshing by name now. I think that's only like the second time so far since 4.0 released. And I'm pretty sure both of them have been in here. Right? Wasn't the other one? No, it's just regular server meshing. Pretty sure recently they mentioned dynamic somewhere else too. I think that was Aaron Roberts talking about some addition that was going to depend on that. This is separating the DGS assignment from its territory manager. The objective is to base territory runtime distribution on several factors, including entity and player distribution and overall shard occupancy. Subsequent work will remove territories from the equation altogether, allowing compute resources to be deployed exactly where they're needed. The Live Tools team worked on improving moderation tools to provide a better user experience for everyone. They also improved the solution that allows the publishing team to schedule in-game messages and continued to add smaller improvements to the various tools used across development. New infrastructure was deployed to better handle game crashes and errors too. Online services continued to work on the item imprint system, including the design aspects, and progressed with diffusion removal to lay the groundwork for the social refactor. Online services also continued to help fix various issues that were discovered by players alongside minor improvements to the mission system tools. I have been tracking these monthly reports over the last 12 months and will continue to do so. I basically have an open ongoing thread with ChatGPT where we summarize and analyze every monthly report, and it recognizes contextually all of the previous reports. So as I'm writing scripts and working on new content in the future, I can easily query and ask when specifically this was mentioned for this feature, and get timelines of feature development. And it's these kinds of little mentions, diffusion removal, to lay the groundwork for the social refactor. I'm going to go back when we get their social refactor and be like, how long ago were they doing the groundwork for this? I wish they were doing the groundwork for this back when we saw the social refactors at CitizenCon. Because I do think that that social refactor will help a lot with the problems people have with the way the game works right now too. All right, continuing on in the UI segment. In May, the team on the UI completed the UI for an upcoming event. That's probably the global event, creating various screens to support the narrative and gameplay. Once completed, the design teams kicked off plans for the next one. Okay, dude, I really hope they don't actually mean the 4.2 release as the event. You can't refer to it as an event when, I mean, hell, your own people in ISC are saying it's not an event. It's not an event. Don't call it an event. I hope that's the global event they're talking about. The new Mirai UI was also finished with the team, which the team kept quiet until the launch of the Guardian MX. Glad there's another customized UI in the game. Mirai uses vibrant colors and dynamic shapes, which were great fun to work on and mark an interesting departure from the retro sci-fi look of our other styles, like Drake and Aegis. Does look good. Looks unique. It's got the colors. The new layout and shapes were a challenge to implement with the existing setup, so the team assessed the problems and rewrote the UI core to make it easier to create more interesting styles in the future. Elsewhere, performance improvements continued, with the team investigating spreading UI processing across multiple cores. Visual prototypes were also worked on for some interesting but currently confidential 3D interactive UIs to replace one of the older systems in the game. I do feel like, ooh, scanning and radar. I bet that's what they're talking about there. They've been doing work on that. And there's definitely going to be 3D elements in the scanning situation now, but maybe not. Maybe this is it could be a lot of things. Inventory, scanning, holo globe. This literally could be for the holo globes and the capital ships, but I think that's still farther away. I don't know. I hope it's scanning and radar. Hopefully. That wraps up our monthly report though, folks.